Thank you so much for coming back and talking to the students again. In our first conversation, we talked about your transition into Indeed.com as a senior business partner. And you had mentioned that you before you even worked for them, you used their applicant tracking system for your recruiting function. And I was hoping that you could expand on that for students.
Yeah, absolutely. So being in a nonprofit, we are very, very budget conscious. And so we were looking for a more efficient way to, handle our recruiting process. And having an applicant tracking system is definitely a great resource to have. And Indeed, we found was very budget friendly for us. Not only could you post jobs and recruit, but you could also keep track of your candidates there. They have a dashboard on the back end. You can create a free account as an employer. And you can go in once you post your jobs and then people start to apply for your jobs. There is a dashboard in the back of the system where you can actually track the candidates. You can look at your the different questions and requirements that you put on your job posting. It'll automatically sort those candidates for you by the most qualified to the least qualified. You can sort those candidates by, who has a bachelor's degree or high school diploma, the years of experience, things like that. And this is all a free resource, right? Also, Indeed also offers candidate assessments as well. So if we were hiring for like a customer service associate, we could send as part of that applicant package is an assessment for customer service skills and cash handling skills. You could also be able to do like a phone screen beforehand. So you can have a certain set of questions that you would like to ask. Indeed will send that automated message to the candidate and that person can record their answers. So even before you talk to a candidate, you can assess, how good of a fit they are for the job. Do they meet the original KSAs or knowledge, skills, and abilities? And you can actually listen to them answer some of those pre-screened questions. So it helps you be more efficient. So when you actually talk to that candidate, you know that you're talking to one of the candidates that you really are interested in, and it doesn't waste your time or the candidate's time because you've done so much pre-work beforehand. So it's a really, really great tool that I used for about 4 years before I even started working for the company.
That is just awesome. It's amazing how much software can improve our lives and give us more time. In HR, you're always time deficient. You mentioned the auto sorting, so adding filters to the applicants to find who is the most qualified or who meets the minimum qualifications. Do you have any suggestions for students who may be applying through Indeed on how to ensure that they meet qualifications? Are there any easy tips or tricks that you think they shouldn't miss?
Yes, that's a great question. So when applying, I would definitely pay attention. Of course, read through the entire job description would be my very first tip because a lot of people do not, right? They'll see the job and they're like, yes, I want this job, click apply. No, you definitely want to read through the job description and make sure that you meet at least the minimum qualifications. And then on top of that, even if you don't meet the minimum qualifications, still apply because then that might trigger especially if they're getting a lot of candidates who are not meeting the right job requirements, that could trigger the recruiter or that company to go back and look at that job profile and say, are we really asking for the right thing? Does this job really require 5 years of experience and a bachelor's degree, right? And making sure, especially the focus being on, diversity and inclusion nowadays, there's a lot of job requirements that companies are going back to and really going back and analyzing and saying, are we cutting out a big segment of the market by requiring these things? Does this job really require that? So I always encourage potential candidates to go back in, even if you don't meet every bullet point on there, still apply. If you have that experience and make sure that it's demonstrated in your resume, still apply because those are some things that could help the employers and recruiters on the other end to go back and reanalyze that job. The other thing is always take the assessments because recruiters are looking we didn't put that tool on there just for, our benefit, right? We put that tool on there to help us to narrow down these candidates and really sort through these candidates. So more often than not, a candidate that took the assessment, well, let me explain like this. Two candidates that may have the exact same qualifications and one took the assessment and one did not. The person normally that's going to get more of a look is the person who took one of the assessments as put on that job. So always take the time, take the assessments. It does add to your Indeed profile as well. So even when you go and apply for other jobs, even if that assessment wasn't something that was asked for on another job, it's going to show up on your profile that this candidate took this assessment and scored highly proficient, or whatever it is that you scored on that. So it helps you to it puts more of a almost an advantage on your Indeed profile as well.
That's great advice. I wanted to go back and just highlight something that you said. You had mentioned that the recruiters, if they have a job posting out there and they have a lot of unqualified individuals applying, that they would potentially go back and take a second look at that job opening. So assuming that, especially if it's in the low skilled, low wage labor market, you should have plenty of individuals applying who qualify. Yes. And so what you're really getting at here is the potential for disparate impact and the recruiter's responsibility to go back and ethically make sure that those minimum job requirements per the EEOC are accurate, that Correct. What is listed as the minimum is what is absolutely on the bottom needed to qualify for that job. And if it's more than what is absolutely needed, then you may be disproportionately impacting a group of the labor market that you don't realize. And this is a great signal. I'm so excited that you mentioned that. It's a wonderful signal that you need to go back and look. There are so many signals along the way that we don't see. We just overlook them. And it is the HR person's responsibility to do this. The whole wave of social change right now in the media is about we need to rethink our ethics and our responsibilities. And, I know you've been very active about it in social media and making sure that HR professionals are, going back and doing what is their due diligence. At the bottom line, you need to do that. That is our responsibility. Sorry, this is my soapbox.
No, I completely agree. It's something that I'm very passionate about because as people who have worked in HR for a long time, right, you get used to doing things a certain way. So sometimes you don't even think about, you may not be intentionally trying to discriminate or exclude a certain part of the market. And you're just like, this is how this job has always been, recruited for. This is what we've always required. But if people don't actually go back and take a second look with fresh eyes and say, what do we really need for this job, right? And that's why I'm like, the candidates can have a hand in helping us do that because we're human too. We can, just like we go to work every day and sometimes we get used to the same old thing. It takes something, sometimes something little can come in and shake us all up and say, hey, we really need to look back at this. So any person that I talk to, any potential candidate, I say, look at the job description. Even if you don't hit every bullet, still apply. If you still have that experience, you have those knowledge, those skills and abilities, apply because it might help the recruiter in that company go back and take a second look.
All right. Thank you. I really appreciate your advice for the students. This has been very informational, not just for the applicant tracking system, but also for our ethics and responsibilities as an entire profession. So Thank you. Thank you for your contribution to the students' growth.
Absolutely. Anytime.